Hi there, Andrew Watt here of andrewbwatt.com. I got into a discussion this week on a Discord server about how astrological magicians simply don't use constellational talismans. Like that's not a thing that we do. And a other person on the server corrected me. They pulled out, in fact, this book by Christopher Warnock explaining how to make constellational talismans. And there's a lot of historical sources in here that demonstrate that um, constellational magic is, in fact, a thing. And it's kind of ironic because I've actually owned this book and read this book before, and it simply slipped my mind. Fortunately, I'm coming to the end of this current project of astrological poems. The sonnets for the Dodecatemoria, or 2.5 degree segments of the sky, is nearly done. I have fewer than 20 poems out of 144 left to write. They're all in, ones and twos in Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And I can see my way to publishing most of those over the next few months. So I'm sort of at loose ends and thinking about projects, and I go, oh, hymns for the constellations. Maybe that's my next poetic project. So I tried my hand at writing one of them, and it's for Argo Navis, which is a southern constellation associated with Jason and the Argonauts. It's the ship that made the journey in the Argonautica. And it's supposed to be good for business and for security and safety in business. And it struck me that this is a good one for solo practitioners and solo business people to work on making. And maybe it's one that you make in conjunction with an astrologer like myself, or maybe it's one you make on your own. It's not particularly hard to do. You you're going to make it out of paper, and I'm going to guide you through the process here. Um, I have written a poem, which will be posted on my regular website at andrewbwatt.com under the title Hymn for Argo Novice, Navis, Argonavis, 2 words, Argo Novice. And and then the talisman looks something like this. And I'm going to hold this up to the camera and go through the parts. This is a mock-up. This is not an actual talisman. If it were, I wouldn't feel comfortable showing it on camera, especially if I was planning on giving it to somebody. This is just me working through how I think I would go about doing it. And this is a folded piece of paper that is 8.5 by 8.5. It's just a piece of photocopy paper, US letter size, cut down and then folded according to the technique that's usually called a Victorian puzzle purse. And it looks something like this, right? One side is flat and square, and I've drawn 3 concentric boxes with a ship on the ocean in the middle. And it's hard to read, but it says Argo Navis here and ship of Argo down here. And then business over here and success over there. And it's got sort of an idealized sketch of an 18th century ship. I would probably do this in a lot more detail if I were making a real talisman. The real constellation of Argo Navis was divided up into several different constellations, which all touch one another. The original constellation was broken up into 3, and then there's a nearby constellation which has always been separate. The one that's always been separate is the compass. And then we have Vela. Oh, I'm turning it the wrong way. Vela, the sail. In this case, I've put 2 sails, 2 square sails on a single main mast. The um, the keel of the ship and the stern, or Puppis is the official name of the constellation. And then the keel is the Carina or Carina. I'm not sure how you say it, but we have the Pyxis or compass, Carina the keel, Vela the sail, and um, Puppis the stern. And I know from reading, gosh, what's the name of the book? It'll come to me in a bit, or I'll look it up online in a minute. There's a book about business which compares business to the parts of an airplane, and it points out that the fuel in the tank is your cash flow, and that the engines are your business operations, and your leadership is the cockpit, and the flying surfaces, the left wing and the right wing, and the rudder are the business decisions that you make along the way. And there's other parts of the metaphor, but the idea is that when you're designing a business plan, you have to think through all of these. Well, in an 18th century sense, these are the parts of a business plan that you have to consider. Compass, where are we going? What are we doing? And so um, I've written a little note to have some kind of a petition about the plans and accounting for your business on the same fly with the little picture of the compass. And then the stern is where the captain lives. And so this part says professional leadership. How are you going to lead and manage your ship? The keel, of course, are the business resources. I forgot to write that on here, but a prayer essentially for business resources. In my business, I'm our resources. The keel is business resources. I'm in the business of being an astrologer and a maker and artisan. So my business resources are my tools, my Zoom account with which I'm recording this, my astrology software, my collection of sewing patterns, my collection of woodworking tools. Those are my business resources. The sale are is of course customers, right? Because that's I need to have some way of catching the wind, so that's advertising and marketing. Because I can't control whether or not the customers arrive, but if I'm not prepared to receive the customers, or if I'm not prepared to attract the customers, I'm not going to be able to offer any services. Um, the keel also represents the business resources in the form of inventory. What do you have to sell? So all four of these flaps fold in on themselves, and the last flap tucks inside like that. So the cool thing about this is that by designing the petitions correctly, you're also designing like a mini business plan and putting your mini business plan inside of your talisman. So then we open up these four flaps that have these four little prayers. And then on the inside, the wheels of the pinwheel say, this is where the names of the stars in Argo Navis are going to go. That's here. And then this flap that I'm holding now says, what is the time of the consecration of the talisman? And then this one says, where did you make it? What was the location where you made it? Um, and then this one has the Argo Navis prayer from Christopher Warnock. There's a prayer in this book on page 77 that you're supposed to say three times during the course of the consecration. And then on these four inner triangles, I've written security, happy customers, honest labor, and prosperity, right? Which are the things that you hope for when you go into business. You know, that you're going to work, but not too hard, and that your work is going to be honest and responsible, that your business is going to prosper, that you're going to find some level of financial security, and that your customers won't be mad at you. I then open it up, and I know from previous experience that poems about the size of the three-verse Argo Navis hymn will fit in this big rectangle in the center, and that leaves me four spaces. two big ones here where my hands are, and two smaller ones here. And so these are further petitions on the sail, the poop deck, the keel, and the compass. What is my business trying to achieve, and why do I feel like I need magic to help achieve those? And of course, in modern day like capitalism, of course you need magic to succeed in business, right? So that's the mock-up of what I'll do the next time that I feel like it's an appropriate time to make a talisman. And it's set up in such a way that I can unfold one of the panels, read the Argo Navis prayer 3 times. I actually would go out and face south from my location and read the Argo Navis prayer when I felt like the star or the constellation was in the right position relative to me. And then I would close up the talisman a little bit at a time. Now, of course, that I'm doing it on camera, I can't get it to fold properly, but it does fold properly. And I'd set things up in such a way that I was folding it correctly. 1, 2, 3. Here's the Christopher Warnock prayer that you're supposed to read 3 times in the process of consecrating it. As I folded it up, I could drop some herbs that are associated with business prosperity inside of it, or put a little piece of quartz crystal as a empowerment to it, and close it up, get a wax seal, put it on the space where these 4 pieces are, and seal it up. Ta-da! Functional talisman for success in business. And I think that this is a useful model that I will try out for future pieces, to try to write not simply the main talismanic hymn, but also short pieces that I know will fit in those little flaps, and create the substantive pieces of that go along with keel, stern, compass, and sail, and that this is a way of uniting several different themes into a single talisman. So I'm sort of glad that I started with Argo Navis because it gave me some options for how to think about this. I hope that helps, and see you next time. Oh, and I should say, thank you to my Patreons, and thank you to the people in various Discord servers who argue with me and help me get to think about my work as a poet, and particularly as an astrological poet, a little bit more carefully.